The National Environment Agency, NEA, lets out vacant hawker stores through monthly tender exercises, which are transparent and fair. After the first tenancy term of 3 years, tendered stores are adjusted towards an assessed market rent determined through independent professional valuation. Since 2012, NEA has removed reserve rent and does not set a minimum bid price for hawker store tenders. As such, tenderers can secure stores at lower than market rent for the first tenancy term. This will not be attainable under a model where stores are allocated at a fixed rental rates. About 1 in 5 cooked food stores were awarded at tender prices at or below $500 a month in 2023. The median successful tender price for cooked food stores across hawker centres was about $2,000 in 2022 and $1,800 in 2023. While some stores at popular locations have attracted higher bids, such tender prices are not the norm. NEA is reviewing relevant policies at hawker centres to ensure that the system remains effective while keeping hawker food prices affordable. Hawkers face various pressures such as raw material costs and manpower costs. To address manpower challenges, NEA has provided support through measures such as the Productive Hawker Centres Programme, the PHC, and the Hawkers Productivity Grant to help storeholders improve productivity and reduce reliance on manpower. We are also looking at other ways to further ease manpower challenges. Currently, only Singapore citizens and permanent residents can be storeholders or work as store assistants in hawker centres managed by NEA and NEA-appointed operators. These measures help to safeguard and preserve the local identity of our hawker centre. NEA exercises some flexibility by allowing storeholders to appoint their spouses who are long-term visit pass LTVP or LTVP plus holders with letter of consent, LOC, or pre-approved LOC as their store assistants, given their familiar ties with the hawkers themselves. To provide additional support to storeholders at hawker centres managed by NEA or NEA-appointed operators, we will further relax our policy to allow hawkers to hire LTVP or LTVP plus holders with letters of consent or pre-approved LOCs to work as their store assistants. This policy will be effective from 1st January 2025. This suggestion was previously also raised by Mr. Edward Chia in an earlier parliamentary question. I hope he'll be happy that NEA is now making this move. We are also studying other support measures for hawkers and will share the details when ready.
I'd like to focus my supplementary questions on the high rental bids. So I've spoken to veteran hawkers regarding this phenomenon of new entrants bidding high rental prices. They shared that it is common that these hawkers would therefore have to charge higher food prices to make up for the high costs. In some cases, other hawkers in the same hawker centre would then see this and take this as a signal that they can also increase their food prices, therefore causing a price increase ripple within the same hawker centre. My first question is, I would like to ask if the ministry tracks if food prices have indeed increased in hawker centres where that had been an abnormally high rental bid. My second question is, I would like to ask if the ministry could consider modelling its tender bid system after the HDB's resale portal and alert prospective bidders if the rental bid that they have submitted exceed the median rent in the same hawker centre by, say, about 10%. Doing so can possibly help prospective hawkers place more realistic bids. But more importantly, I hope that this can help moderate food price increases as a result of high rental bids.
On his first question of whether NEA tracks hawker food prices versus in correlation to the rental they bidded for, I don't have the data at hand, but I would say that in the price competitive market in a hawker center where there are multiple stores offering food of different prices and different choices for consumers, it would be something that the market will have to take into account. In other words, a person who bidded for a high rental price at a store will have to actually take into account what consumers can bear as well. so that he can keep his business viable. And I think we have to allow that the market to actually weed out those who are not competitive, are unable to offer food at an affordable price where consumers will see this as good value for money. And allow some churn in the market so that at some point, the best operator with the best offering in terms of quality, taste, and quality of the food, with the price that consumers can bear, will be the one that eventually can succeed. But having said that, I must emphasize that high store rental bids that the member may be talking about are actually the outlier and not the norm. And as in my reply earlier, the median cost of rental across our hawker centres has remained quite stable over the last few years. What we can do in response to his second suggestion of putting some form of alert to help bidders to be a lot more, I suppose, considered in their choices when they come to bidding for, in their prices when they come to bidding for a rental store, is to put out perhaps a little bit more granular information on the NEA website so that a potential bidder would actually be more cognizant of the kind of price points that he's competing against fellow store owners in the same hawker centre. And to ensure his longer-term viability, he would then have to be a bit more moderate about what kind of price he wants to bid for a store. So I think this is where something that NEA will take back and see how much more granular information we can put out. But like I said, these are very rare circumstances where a small number of percentage of storeholders do put in that kind of bid prices. I would say most hawkers actually do try to make sure that they bid at a price that is sustainable for their own businesses. And I think this is something that we will see how to enhance further.
So I agree with the SMS that these very high rental bids are fewer, are exceptions. But it does have the effect of creating some upside on the renters, something that we should take note of. And this disproportionately high rental risk does go against the intent of hawker centres, why we set up hawker centre, which is to provide hawker foods at affordable prices. So I'd like to ask the SMS whether NEAs, besides looking at the rental bids, whether they could also do some due diligence on the bidders, whether they have the ability and the financial capacity to be able to sustain at this kind of high rentals for their business. Because they take up a store, someone who have come in, another storeholder could have be able to do it better. Very much like how in public tenders, we look at price and quality, so whether these storeholders have the means and capabilities to be able to sustain at such a high rental rate.
Indeed, I think it's always good to help the store owners make a more considered bid when it comes to bidding for a store. But I would be cautious about actually putting in requirements that make it much more difficult for a potential tenderer to put in a bid. When we say doing due diligence, I think it could mean that actually we're going to impose a lot more onerous demand on a store bidder to show a lot more information before we select the bid. And that itself could disadvantage hawkers who may not be able to put in, say, a certain proposal or show their financial standing. And we have to let the market actually in some ways select out those who can actually survive in a competitive marketplace. Bear in mind that in a typical hawker center, it's not everyone who will be in the outlier pricing. And as I said, these are a small number of stores in the grand scheme of things. So by and large, the kind of hawker offerings in a particular hawker center will help to moderate prices of other stores who may find that it's difficult for them to survive if they were to actually price themselves out of the market. And when we talk about due diligence, I think it's putting out more information so that they can also be clear about what they are bidding for. So one thing which I said earlier is about putting more information on the NEA websites so that when the bidder comes in, he's aware of what his fellow storeholders are actually paying as a market rent. We will take some of these considerations that you have and see how best we can actually maybe make adjustments even to the bidding process so that these excessive high bids will be something that is lesser than what it is today. But in fact, this is already a very small number of bids that go into this kind of stratostrophic range.
When he say 1 in 5 hawker stores have rental below $500, does the statistic includes non-cooked food stores? This is the first question. Secondly is, since the government is liberalizing the manpower policy with regards to the hawker stores, to include the LTVC holders, has the government also considered liberalizing it straight to allow work permit holders to work in hawker stores. Because currently, as far as we know, that there's a scheme called the mini restaurant license scheme, whereby some hawkers at the coffee shops and food courts are allowed to employ work permit holders.
First question, the answer is that the rates we quoted applies only to cooked food stores. Yeah. And for the second question, whether we were going to liberalize it to, in general, work permit holders, answer is not at this moment, because we still want to preserve the hawker culture, which is largely run by still local Singaporeans. Of course, with a small supplement from some LTVP plus LOC holders, because the numbers actually today are very small to begin with. And while we want to help solve their manpower challenges in the immediate term, the more sustainable way forward is to continue to help hawkers to adopt more resilient and more productive methods, which is why we enhanced the Productive Hawker Centre grant to do at a centralized level to make the hawker centre more productive through things like centralized dishwashing, for example. And also to continue to enhance the Productive Hawker Centre grant, Productive Hawkers grant, Hawkers Productivity grant, where the hawkers themselves can take on more productive methods of preparing their food. For example, with the grant, they can purchase food preparation processing equipment to do the meat mincing, vegetable chopping, and also reduce their reliance on just manpower to do these repetitive tasks. So I think with this kind of measure, this is why we want hawkers to adopt a more productive kind of approach to their business itself to be more sustainable, while for those who may still need some manpower, this is where the LTVP plus LOC liberalization will help them to access some of these LTVP plus holders who are already here in Singapore on a permanent basis as part of a family nexus in Singapore to actually be able to contribute economically as well.